would like to welcome everyone to Calverton National Cemetery, and on behalf of the director of Calverton National Cemetery and all of its staff, we'd like to extend our deepest condolences at this time for your loss. We'd also like to thank any veterans in attendance for their service. We ask if you have a cell phone at this time to please place it on silent, out of respect for the cemetery and for your loved one. Video and pictures are permitted if you would like to take them. The grave location is section 29A and the grave is 8C. The cemetery is open 365 days a year, from sun up to sundown for visitation. We'll now have military honors from United States Air Force.
behalf of the President of the United States, of the Department of the Air Force, and the Military Foundation, please accept the flowers as a token of appreciation for your love and honor and faithful service.
And for my girl, Poppy. Vincent was born in 1932. Over the course of his life, he was a hard-working man and a dedicated employee, having worked at the same company for over 30 years before he finally retired at the age of 80 years old. He was a great example of how hard work can keep a person young. Vincent was a brave man. He served his nation in the Air Force during the Korean War. Although he didn't speak about his experience in Korea, later on in life, he wrote detailed accounts of his time of service. While, like many soldiers, he internalized all that went on overseas, later in life, he was able to put pen to paper, a cathartic experience. A bit later, Sherry and I will share one of his writings, a poem entitled Remembering. Vincent was known for a sense of humor, sarcastic and teasing, but always kind. He also had good old-fashioned manners. Even in his days of dementia, his manners stayed with him almost until the end. He treated everyone around him with the utmost respect. Vincent loved his sons and was immensely proud of them. 3 pictures of his sons, Joe, Clint, and Lance, each entering the Marines, have always sat prominently in Vinny and Sherry's dining room, a testament to Vinny's great pride in his sons and their military service. In his later years, Vinny proved to be brave and devoted once again when he agreed to move to Israel for Sherry. While he loved the hot sun of Israel and was always motivated to make Sherry happy, it was indeed a difficult decision. It was a difficult decision to leave his country and most of all, his beloved sons. As always, Vinny called his sons often, and he and Sherry visited with his beloved family a few times a year when they would travel to the States. During Vinny's last 11 years, when he lived in Israel, Vinny continued his deep connection with me and grew to love my husband, Oren. He became like another grandfather to my girls, Yael and Naama, whom he loved deeply. The devotion that Vinny showed Sherry their entire life together came back to him in his final years. I can assure everyone here that Vinny was treated with the highest degree of dignity by his beloved Sherry. Sherry made sure that he was always comfortable, sensing every little detail, such as his teeth irritating his gums, and would quickly alleviate pain or discomfort. When he could no longer speak for himself, Sherry listened with her heart, and she spoke for him. She never let anyone treat Vinny with even the smallest amount of disrespect, and she insisted upon his being treated with the highest degree of dignity. Their love for one another is a great example of deep love and profound respect. Vinny was a terrific man, a devoted husband, a caring father, a kind person, and a true American patriot. He knew how to light up a room with his outgoing personality, and he touched many lives in his 92 years on earth. He will be remembered and cherished by all who loved him. One of Vinny's favorite songs was Frank Sinatra's My Way. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case of which I'm certain. I have lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. As we bid you farewell today, Vinny, we know you'll always be in our hearts. And now we'll take a moment of silent personal reflection. invite Sherry to join me in reading Vinny's poem.
It's called Remembering. And he wrote this for Memorial Day 1991. With a Marine Sergeant's son in the Kuwaiti operation, to the reports I listened with great concentration.
But, trying not to, as hard as I can, my mind kept drifting to the events of Vietnam.
Some years ago, not far in the past, our country was at war, which we thought would not long last.
So we sent our sons, black, white, red, and brown, their lives, if they had to, they would lay down.
Little did they know it would be their worst hell, but they did what they had to and did it well.
It was a fight, they were told, for freedom and glory, but when they came back, it was a different story.
They returned to a land that offered no love. Some reached for help from the heavens above.
They wandered as strangers in the cold and with pain. There was no sun for them, only rain.
With no hand to hold, they walked alone. They had no friends, they had no home.
As they sat and trembled, we could not know that we at home were their worst foe.
Their moms and dads, they tried, how they tried, but they could not know the terror or the sight as their lives were stalked in the dark of night.
As they watched friends, bodies broken and spent, life's blood ebbing, they came and they went.
Some to this day relive the sights they saw and the battles they fought. They withdrew to the forests where forgiveness they sought.
So we built a wall and built it well with the names of our sons who in battle fell.
A wall which we know will last many years, so that deep in our hearts we can hold back the tears.
There is a statue aside the wall to say to our sons, well done, stand tall.
The gun is now silent, no chopper blade turns, but for these souls, the agony still burns.
I hope when they who are troubled sleep at night, they have sweet dreams and hear the voices whisper, come home.
It's all right. It's all right.
The measure of a man. Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the things that measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Not what was his station, but had he a heart? And how did he play his God-given part? Was he ever ready with a word of good cheer, to bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what was his church, not what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away? These are the things that measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Now we will take some time to hear from those closest to Vinny, whose lives were deeply touched by his presence. I'd like to invite Sherry, Vinny's beloved wife, to share her memories with us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here to say goodbye to my wonderful Vinny, who was, of course, the love of my life, my soulmate, and my best friend. Vinny was loved by everyone he came into contact with. He had terrific manners. Sometimes he'd wait to hold the door for someone a mile away. He just knew how to meet and greet people and make them feel good. He had a terrific sense of humor, yep, sarcastic and sweet at the same time. and people loved him, nobody as much as I did. Vinny was the most level-headed person I've known, always by my side, certainly when I would be stressed or nervous, and he always knew how to make me feel better. I was blessed to have met him and to have spent so many fabulous years with him. When I asked Vinny to move to Israel, he was not happy about leaving his family, of course. But being such a wonderful husband, he agreed. To know Vinny, you knew his patriotism for America and his wish to be buried here in a military cemetery. When we moved to Israel, he took his patriotism with him and began to love Israel as well. When we visited here, he would rave about how great Israel was, never taking away his love for America. Leaving his sons, who he was so proud of, was so hard for him. But we made sure we came here 3 or 4 times a year for many years so that we could be with them and enjoy our times together. He proudly never left our house without his Marine hat in hope that someone would admire it. And then he'd be able to tell his story of his 3 sons in the Marines. Vinny and I traveled to Europe many times once we moved to Israel, and we both enjoyed all our trips immensely. He was a very hard-working man, ensuring our retirement and future would enable us to travel and enjoy ourselves. Vinny loved Rebecca from the moment he met her as a baby and enjoyed being with her all the time. He adored her and felt she was the girl he hadn't had himself. She and Oren gave him, well, us, I should say, the pleasure of Yael and Naamah. He loved watching them grow, teaching them as much as he could, and glowed when he was with them. Oren was Vinny's friend. They had many great times together and talked about anything and everything. Vinny loved when we were with Angelo and Rima and Rosie and Joey. They were times that we enjoyed so much, and those times were always in our memories. When Vinny started showing signs of dementia, it was beyond comprehension to see him losing himself in a really horrible, slow, and insidious way. It was horrendous for me and absolutely the worst, most stressful time of my life. I tried to continue on with our life for Vinny as closely as possible to the way it had been. The last time we came to New York was just too much for all of us, mostly for Vinny. Oren and Rebecca and the girls helped immensely. Oren had to lift him out of the plane seat and assist the flight attendant to get him through the plane aisle. I knew on the way to New York that it would have to be the last time for him to see his family. But with the help of an old Sag Harbor acquaintance sitting with Vinny each day, we made the best of that trip. Vinny was the best. I was born the day he kissed me. I died inside the day he left me. But I lived. Oh, how I lived while he loved me. Thank you all. His sons have arranged a nice luncheon at the Irish Times in Holbrook. Please join us.
I'd like at this time to invite Clint, Vinny's son, to share his words with us.
First of all, deepest condolences. And Sherry asked me to say something about my dad. I thought to myself, do I really know how to think about it? I was like, my dad was his memories. And I think Dad was something different to everyone. I think when I met, just a couple of people, I asked, they said, your dad was fun. I think people remember my dad was always fun. And I asked my children independently, I said, okay, you're going here. How do you remember Grandpa? Fun. Fun and funny. And that's what I remember. But there was a lot more than my dad. So when you think about my dad, what do you think about? There's probably a memory, there's probably a conversation, there's probably a situation. So just think about that. His humor was probably the most prominent, most visible part of his personality that people remember. And I'm grateful that I got that. his humor, and I'm also grateful I got my name, Clinton. Clint Walker, not Clint Eastwood, just so we know. You know, he was charismatic, he was brutally blunt, he was educated on a myriad of topics. He could talk about almost anything with you, intelligently, objectively, rationally. His knowledge of sports was immeasurable. In fact, many of you might not know this, but Dad moonlighted as a tout. You may say, what's a tout? So a tout, which is in the sporting world, is someone who sells picks of winners against the spread and the over-under, which he built a loyal following. And it was just, that's how well he knew sports. And when he had a passion for something, he really delved into it. I call my dad, and I've said this to my children, my dad was an equal opportunity harasser. He did not care. He did not care with your religion, your color, your gender, your body type, anything. Handicap. But the man did not have a mean bone in his body. His work ethic and commitment to his job, mostly at Russell Plastics, which is what I had the most familiarity with, other than he worked at Johnny Lightning Matchbox car makers when I was a small kid, so I got good cars. But you know, it was impressive. And Rebecca referenced it. My dad's loyalty, his work ethic, his manners, which was something that I always looked at and emulated. He was always willing to pick up a ball or play anything that required dexterity or coordination, which he excelled. And when he was around his children, his grandchildren, even his great-grandchildren, he was always engaged with them, and they're always something that he relished and was proud of. So, in trying to capture Dad's persona, which is challenging, he had a broad spectrum of desires, likes, and things that made him happy. I thought it would be easier to just tell some stories. And there are a lot of stories. First of all, my dad would tell a story many, many times of how he played third base in Pittsburgh, Air Force team, and he told that story his whole life. And
6 hours.
Everybody knows the story. In 1970, he brought me to a charity softball game. And it was my dad, whoever he was playing for, was against the Playboy Bunnies from New York, because there used to be a bunny club in New York. Joe Namath was there. And so we got to play, and I still have an autographed signature from that day to Clint from Joe. Broadway Joe, as most know. The fun we had in Johnstown at Aunt Rosie and Uncle Joe's, celebrating in keeping with my father's humor, celebrate my grandfather's passing. That was probably the most fun I've ever had at a funeral. I don't know if the priest was as happy about it as we were, but it was just a time that I will never forget. But I gotta tell you, is when we went to Atlantic City before, we went to Israel, which, just so we're aware, my beautiful daughter back there was the first female Laviano born in 40 years. And she's 30, what are you, 30 years old now?
Yeah.
30 years old, with a beautiful family. So we all went to, she's 21. We all went to Atlantic City And it was myself, Nikki, Joey, Joe, and Lance. And we just had a great time. But the memory that is etched in my mind is Dad had forgot something in his room. And we had walked to the elevator, we're standing in the elevator, and he's 79 years old. And he's probably 50 yards from us down this long hallway. And he goes, I forgot something, I gotta go back. He goes back to the room, and he comes out of the room, I see him come down, and I was like, come on, old man, we're waiting for you. And Dad begins to run. And I'm telling you, 79-year-old guy was sprinting for 50 yards to us, and he came back, and it was just his pure spirit. That's who he was. So, maybe I did know my dad a lot better than I thought. But, as in life, we all have people that make a difference. And I think Dad taught me a couple things. He taught me what to be, he taught me what to do, but he also taught me what not to be and what not to do. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
Not gonna get old. I can't do that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you a fun story. My Uncle Angelo was getting divorced. And you're talking probably back in the 50s or whatever, 60s. People didn't get divorced. My grandfather was deaf. My cousin Luann's father, Joe Marchese, Luann's here somewhere, and my father go to my grandfather, who's deaf, sitting in a chair, and my father and my Uncle Joe's looking at him. He goes, "Hey, Pop, Angelo?" "Yeah, Angelo. He died." "What? My Angelo died?" Joe Marchese is looking at my father like, "Vinny, what are you doing?" Boy, my grandpa was almost crying, and my father's looking at him, and he pats him on the shoulder, and he goes, "Pop, what are you crying for?" "You said Angelo's died." "No, not died. He's getting a divorce." "Only a divorce?" "Yeah." "Oh, no." He was so happy. My Uncle Joe goes, "You could have killed him." You know what I mean? He's like 86 years old. That's his humor. But too much stuff to go over. Great guy. Loved baseball. Loved the kids. Could watch and talk baseball forever. Just a great guy. Thank you for taking very good care of him. He was taking care of immensely. So, but thank you. That's it.
There's been a lot of times where he would just come up with this weird, most people say it's weird, I found it was normal, but he would just come up with weird things, like when they went up to Grandpa's funeral, his brother was laying there sleeping, he's sitting there and they're putting, because he's like, and he's sitting there and putting ashes in his mouth, and they thought it's like the funniest thing in the world to use his mouth as an ashtray. Now, nobody else I'm sure will find that funny, but to me it was hilarious. But that's just the type of, that's just the way it was, you know? But, you know, had a good long life, a lot of experiences, did a lot of things, and God bless him. Thank you.
Nose as loud as you could, letting me know you were out there rooting for me. Until the end, you cried whenever I sang. When no words would come out anymore, I know our connection was intact by the tears in your eyes. I couldn't speak to you or sing near you without you shedding a tear. I cherish that. Uncle Joe, Poppy, I will never forget you. From my earliest days until the last days of your life, you have been an incredibly important part of my life. As I sit here now listening to My Way, I remember you. I will always remember your smile, your sense of humor, and the way you teased me with love. I will remember the happy life that you gave to my aunt, and I will remember how you helped to shape my children. You were a good friend to my husband. We love you.
only 9 pages long. Patience.
He's kidding.
Papi, Uncle Joe, Pal, as you used to call me. We may not have been related by blood, but I've always felt you were truly family. From the very first moment I met you, I loved you. Honestly, who wouldn't? You were a true gentleman, a mensch, as the Yiddish word goes. An embodiment of positivity, humility, and kindness. You never complained and always carried a fantastic, cynical sense of humor. Every time I saw you, you lifted my spirit. You always wore a smile, gave a compliment, and were ready to enjoy good company. Someone once told me that friendship has no age, and when we met, I understood just how true that is. I remember bringing you to poker nights with my buddies. At first, they were skeptical. When I told them I was bringing Uncle Joe, they wondered what an older man would do at our poker nights. I reassured them, saying he's younger than most of us. And it only took a few minutes for them to see what I meant. They quickly accepted you as one of the group. I could spend hours telling stories about those poker games, the hands you played, the ridiculous card you stayed with, and someone turned into a full house in a miraculous ways. You changed our game and left us with endless stories to tell. I miss your sense of humor, your sarcasm, and the dark jokes we used to share. You never missed a chance for a good laugh, no matter the situation. I'll never forget when Rebecca led services at the synagogue, worried that you'd blow your nose loudly right when she started singing. And of course you did. I can almost hear you doing it right now as I say these words. You had your iconic shirt, the one that read, "Join the Marines, explore new places, meet new people, and kill them." Went all over Israel, of course. It made us laugh because despite the hard joke, you were one of the kindest souls I've ever known. And your unique birthday song. You live in a zoo, you look like a monkey, and you smell like one too. Only you could deliver it in such a way that it made everyone laugh instead of cringe. I know you wouldn't want any of us to feel sad today. You would want us to appreciate life, enjoy what we have, and always smile. You taught me that good approach to life is the key to a healthy body. You once told me at 85 that you felt you lived a full life, 3 wives, 3 beloved sons. You wanted to see my daughters in their teenage years, and I remember when Yael was just a year old, you said, "I wish to see them as teenagers," and you did. Now it's time to say farewell, dearest Uncle Joe. Rest in peace, your memory will forever be a blessing.